The device we repurposed, Theo explained rapidly. It was designed to work with our specific bond frequency. If we can modify it further, we might be able to establish communication with the vessel. Communication? Ortiz questioned skeptically. They're clearly hostile. Not communication through traditional channels, Naylora clarified. A direct bond-based connection that bypasses their systems. We could potentially access their motivations directly, perhaps even influence their intentions. Admiral Kessler shook his head. That's too risky. We should prepare defensive measures and evacuation protocols. There's no time for evacuation, Theo countered. And our weapons may not be effective against their advanced shielding. This may be our only option. High resonator Thelan's ancient patterns shifted to a deep resonant gold, a sign of formal authority rarely displayed. I support this attempt. The bond has already proven its value in crisis. Let us see if it may save us once more. After a tense moment, Secretary General Ortiz nodded reluctantly. Proceed. But at the first sign of increased danger, we implement defensive protocols. The amplifier device had been secured in a specialized laboratory near the station's core. As they hurried through the corridors, Theo and Naylora communicated rapidly through their bond, sharing technical insights and possibilities without the limitations of verbal speech. When they reached the lab, Dr. Watanabe was already there, studying the device with fascinated intensity. The infiltrator's technology is remarkable, she told them. It's designed to amplify neural patterns across species barriers. I've been documenting its architecture, but haven't attempted to activate it again. We need to do more than activate it, Naylora explained. We need to modify its transmission parameters to target the approaching vessel. Working together in perfect synchronization, Theo, Naylora, and Dr. Watanabe began modifying the amplifier. Through their bond, Theo accessed Naylora's intuitive understanding of energy patterns, while she drew upon his technical knowledge of Earth communication systems. Their shared consciousness worked through problems at twice the speed of normal thought, finding solutions neither would have discovered alone. As they worked, the station's tactical display showed the unknown vessel drawing closer, now less than 10 minutes from weapons range. They're charging some kind of energy weapon, Lieutenant Poddle reported over the comm. Our shields may not hold against it. Almost ready, Theo replied, making a final adjustment to the amplifier's focusing array. The device hummed to life, its central crystal pulsing with the same frequency as Naylora's bioluminescent patterns. She placed her hands on 2 contact points, while Theo did the same on the opposite side. Their bond surged as the amplifier sensed with their neural patterns, extending their connection beyond normal limits. Their consciousness expanded outward, pushing through the station's hull and into space. At first, there was only the vast emptiness between stars, then the sharp edge of the approaching vessel's energy field. They encountered resistance, mental barriers and technological shielding designed to prevent exactly this kind of intrusion. But the amplifier boosted their bond beyond what the infiltrators had anticipated, allowing them to slip through the defenses. Inside the vessel, they found 5 minds, 3 Vexeri-dominant hybrids, and 2 human-dominant ones. Their consciousness was alien yet familiar, filled with determination and fear. Memories flooded through the connection. A timeline where bonding had spread chaotically, where fear had led to persecution, where hybrid children had been treated as abominations by both species. We understand your suffering, Theo and Naylora projected together. But your solution will cause greater harm across multiple realities. Resistance met their thoughts, then confusion as the hybrid minds realized they were experiencing a single unified consciousness from 2 distinct individuals, something their own timeline had never achieved. Your bond is different, came the response from one mind, stronger than the others. How? We chose it, Naylora projected. It wasn't forced or accidental. We embraced what formed between us. Choice, echoed the hybrid mind. Our timeline never had choice. Bonding was either forbidden or mandatory, never a personal decision. Images flowed between them, alternate histories, possible futures, branches of time where their species took different paths. Through it all, Theo and Nilora maintained their unified presence, neither dominating the other, a living demonstration of harmony through respect and balance. There is another way, they offered together. Not control, not chaos. Conscious evolution through mutual understanding. The resistance began to waver. Doubt crept into the hybrids' determination as they experienced firsthand what a truly balanced bond could achieve. Suddenly, one of the hybrid minds pushed forward, desperate and angry. No, they lie. Remember our mission. The vessel's energy readings spiked dangerously as someone initiated the quantum displacement device. Alarm surged through Theo and Nilora's bond as they sensed the building catastrophe. But then the other hybrid minds rallied, their combined will pressing against the desperate action of their companion. Enough, came their unified thought. We came to prevent suffering, not cause it. Through their expanded consciousness, Theo and Nilora sensed the internal conflict aboard the vessel, felt the moment when the majority choice was made. The energy readings began to stabilize as the device was deactivated. Return with us, Theo and Nilora offered. Help us build a path that avoids the mistakes of your timeline. Exhaustion swept over them as the amplifier reached its limits. Their expanded consciousness contracted, pulling back through space to their physical bodies in the laboratory. They collapsed against each other as the connection to the vessel broke, the amplifier powering down with a declining hum. Commander, Ambassador. Dr. Watanabe's voice seemed distant as they struggled to reorient to physical reality. They've stopped, Theo managed, his voice hoarse. They're standing down. The lab's communication panel confirmed his words moments later. Unknown vessel has powered down weapons, Lieutenant Puddle reported. They're requesting permission to dock under peaceful terms. When Theo and Nilora finally returned to the council chamber, they found a changed atmosphere. The Earth and Vexery delegations had moved beyond their separate sides of the table, now interspersed as they discussed the unprecedented events. Secretary General Ortiz and High Resonator Thelen stood together, reviewing security protocols for the hybrid delegation's arrival. Commander Rivers, Ambassador Nilora, Ortiz acknowledged as they entered. It seems we owe you our thanks yet again. Your bond has demonstrated its value beyond question. Thelen added, his ancient patterns flowing with what Theo now recognized as profound respect. Theo and Nilora exchanged glances, their bond humming with shared satisfaction and exhaustion. What happens now? Theo asked. Ortiz's expression remained serious but had softened somewhat. Now we learn. The hybrids have agreed to share information about their timeline, warnings about paths to avoid, insights into integration challenges. In return, they wish to observe how our species might find a better way forward. Beginning with you two, Thelen said. Your bond represents something their timeline never achieved, balance through choice rather than coercion. Through their connection, Theo felt Nilora's quiet pride and determination. They had faced infiltration, sabotage, politics, and now temporal intervention. Yet their bond had only strengthened through each challenge. We're ready, they said together, their voices and thoughts aligned in perfect harmony. As the delegations resumed their discussions with renewed purpose, Theo and Nilora stood united at the center, no longer caught between worlds, but forming a bridge between them. Through understanding, they had found not just personal connection, but salvation for countless lives across multiple realities. And in that moment, both knew with certainty that this was only the beginning of what their bond might achieve. A new chapter. 3 months after the near-catastrophic encounter with the temporal vessel, Nexus Station had transformed from a simple diplomatic outpost to the centerpiece of a new era in human-Vexery relations. The central promenade, once a utilitarian corridor, now featured a harmonious blend of Earth and Vexery design elements. Living crystal formations grew alongside terrestrial plants, their bioluminescence complementing the station's lighting in a symphony of form and function. Commander Theo Rivers stood at his favorite spot on the observation deck, watching as a joint fleet exercise unfolded against the backdrop of the nebula. Human and Vexari vessels moved in coordinated patterns that would have been impossible mere months ago, their navigation systems now compatible thanks to technologies developed from studying the bond. "Still admiring your handiwork," came a familiar voice from behind him. Theo turned to find Admiral Kessler approaching, his once stern expression now carrying the weathered look of someone whose worldview had undergone significant revision. "Not my handiwork, sir," Theo replied. "Everyone's." Kessler nodded, coming to stand beside him at the viewport. "The Joint Council is pleased with the progress. 6 more bonded pairs have been officially recognized, all volunteers who underwent the preparation protocols you and Ambassador Nilara developed." Through the bond, Theo felt Nilara's approach before he heard her. Her consciousness brushed against his like a familiar touch, warm, distinct, yet perfectly integrated with his own awareness. "Admiral," she acknowledged as she joined them, her bioluminescent patterns shifting in formal recognition. "I trust Earth Command is satisfied with the security protocols for tomorrow's ceremony." "As satisfied as they ever are with unprecedented interspecies events," Kessler replied dryly. "Secretary General Ortiz sends her regards. She'll be arriving within the hour." Nilara's patterns rippled with what Theo now recognized as subtle amusement. Over the months, he had become increasingly fluent in the nuances of Vexari expression, just as she had grown adept at interpreting human emotional subtleties. "And the Vexari delegation?" Theo asked. "Already docked," Kessler confirmed. High Resonator Felon specifically requested a tour of the new Harmony Research Center before the formal proceedings. The Admiral's communication panel chimed, drawing his attention. "Excuse me," he said, stepping away to take the call. Alone for a moment, Theo and Nilara turned to each other. No words were needed, their bond conveying volumes in the space between heartbeats, shared pride in what they had accomplished, nervous anticipation about tomorrow's treaty signing, and beneath it all, the steady current of connection that had become the foundation of their lives. "The hybrids are responding well to the integration program," Nilara said aloud, referring to the alternate timeline visitors who had chosen to remain. "Veridin has become an invaluable consultant on potential timeline divergences." Theo nodded. Dr. Watanabe mentioned they've identified 3 critical decision points that led to conflict in their timeline. We've already navigated 2 of them differently. Their conversation was interrupted as Lieutenant Patil approached, now wearing the insignia of Nexus Station's Chief of Security, a promotion she had earned through her handling of the crisis. "Commander, Ambassador," she greeted them formally. "The preparations for tomorrow's ceremony are complete. Security protocols have been synchronized across both human and Vexari systems." "Thank you, Lieutenant," Theo replied. "Any word from our temporal friends?" "Veridin and his team will be attending as observers," Patil confirmed. "They've agreed to the non-interference protocols, though they seem almost emotional about witnessing the treaty signing." Through their bond, Theo felt Nilara's empathy for the hybrids. For them, this represents a future they never had, a chance to see what might have been, and what might still be in their own timeline. Theo added silently. The research into temporal mechanics inspired by the hybrid's arrival had yielded fascinating theories about timeline malleability. Though they couldn't return to change their own past, there was growing evidence that new choices in one timeline could create resonant effects across parallel realities, subtle influences that might guide alternate versions of themselves toward better outcomes. Admiral Kessler returned, his expression unusually animated. "We just received confirmation. The Lyrini have accepted our invitation to send observers to the treaty signing." Nilara's patterns flashed with surprise and delight. "The first allies have agreed to come. This is unprecedented." The Lyrini, the first species with whom the Vexari had formed bonds centuries ago, had remained reclusive for generations, observing but rarely engaging with expanding civilizations. Their decision to attend represented a historic breakthrough in itself. "They specifically cited your bond as the reason for their interest," Kessler informed them. "Apparently, they'd been monitoring our progress since the first reports reached them." As the day continued, Nexus Station buzzed with activity. Delegations arrived from across both Earth and Vexeri space. The station's expanded conference facilities had been transformed into a grand hall for the treaty signing, adorned with symbols from both cultures interwoven in meaningful patterns. By evening, Theo found himself momentarily overwhelmed by the diplomatic whirlwind. He retreated to a quiet alcove in the botanical gardens, another addition inspired by the integration process, where Earth plants grew alongside Vexeri crystal formations in symbiotic harmony. "Found you," came Nylara's thought, tinged with affection, as she joined him in the secluded spot. "Needed a moment to breathe," he explained aloud, though she already understood through their connection. She sat beside him on a bench formed from living crystal that adjusted its shape to accommodate both human and Vexeri physiology, one of many innovations born from their collaboration. "Tomorrow changes everything," she said softly, her patterns shifting to contemplative blues and silvers. "The harmony accords will establish protocols for voluntary bonding between our species, mutual defense agreements, cultural exchange initiatives, and officially recognize us as the first pair," Theo added, feeling the weight of that historical designation. "Sometimes I still can't believe it all started with a simple compliment about your bioluminescence." Nylara's patterns rippled with warm humor, the most consequential compliment in diplomatic history. Through their bond, memories flowed between them, the initial shock and confusion, the crisis that forced them to trust their connection, the political challenges they had navigated together, and the gradual transformation of an accidental link into a chosen partnership that had changed two civilizations. "Have you decided?" Nylara asked after a comfortable silence, referencing the offer they had both received. Earth Command and the Vexeri Conclave had jointly proposed establishing a new diplomatic division, bond ambassadors who would utilize their unique connection to bridge understanding between their species on even the most complex issues. "I have," Theo confirmed. "I'm accepting the position. My replacement as station commander arrives next week." Nylara's patterns brightened with approval. "As will I. The Conclave has already endorsed my transition from traditional ambassador to bond diplomat." A soft chime from above indicated the garden's lighting would soon shift to evening mode. As the illumination dimmed, Nylara's natural bioluminescence became more prominent, casting gentle patterns across Theo's face. "Remember when you couldn't read my expressions at all?" she asked, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the garden's lights. Theo smiled. "Now I can't imagine not understanding them." The truth was deeper than words could express, but flowed easily through their bond. Where once they had been strangers separated by biological and cultural divides, they now existed in a shared space between worlds, neither fully one nor the other, but something new and vital. The following morning arrived with ceremonial fanfare. The grand hall filled with representatives from across human and Vexeri space, along with observers from allied species, and most remarkably, the reclusive Lyrani delegation. Tall, willowy beings whose subtle luminescence reminded Theo of dawn breaking over Earth's oceans. Secretary General Ortiz and High Resonator Thelen took their positions at the central table, where the Harmony Accords lay ready for signature. The document itself was a marvel of integration, inscribed on both traditional paper and living crystal, with text in multiple languages that seemed to shift and complement each other as the light changed. "Before we proceed with the formal signing," Ortiz announced to the assembled dignitaries, "I wish to acknowledge those whose courage and vision made this moment possible." She gestured toward Theo and Nylara, who stood together near the center of the hall. Commander Theo Rivers and Ambassador Nylara stepped into unknown territory when their bond formed. They faced suspicion, danger, and uncertainty, yet chose to embrace their connection rather than fear it. In doing so, they opened a path for all of us. High Resonator Thelen's ancient patterns rippled with formal acknowledgement. Throughout Vexeri history, we have learned that true progress often begins not with grand plans, but with individual choices that ripple outward to change societies. The first pair has demonstrated that principle for both our peoples. At a gesture from both leaders, Theo and Nylara approached the central table. According to the ceremony's protocol, they would witness the treaty signing as representatives of what the document itself described as the living embodiment of harmony between diverse minds. As Secretary General Ortiz lifted the ceremonial pen, a flicker of movement caught Theo's attention. At the back of the hall, standing quietly among the observers, was Veridon. The hybrid's expression held a complex emotion that transcended simple categories: grief for what had been lost in their timeline, hope for what might yet be, and something like peace in witnessing this moment. Through their bond, Nylara sensed Theo's attention shift and followed his gaze. Together, they acknowledged Veridon with a subtle nod of respect. Perhaps some good came from their timeline after all. Nylara's thought touched his mind. Their warnings helped us find a better path, and perhaps our choices will echo back to help them. Somehow, Theo added. The room fell silent as the treaty signing began. With deliberate ceremony, Secretary General Ortiz signed her name to the document, then passed the pen to High Resonator Thelen, who added his signature alongside hers. As the pen touched the living crystal, it responded with a soft luminescence that spread through the document, linking the signatures in a web of light. A moment of profound silence followed. Then the hall erupted in applause and the harmonic tones of Vexery celebration. From across the gathering, the Lyrani observers made a gesture that Theo recognized from historical records, the formal acknowledgement of a new civilization taking its place among the stars. Hours later, when the formal celebrations had given way to more relaxed diplomatic mingling, Theo and Nylara found themselves once again on the observation deck. The nebula outside seemed somehow brighter, its colors more vibrant against the backdrop of space. So, Theo said, Bond ambassadors, ready for our next adventure. Nylara's patterns shifted to the warm gold that she reserved for their most private moments. With you. Always. Through their bond flowed the certainty that had grown between them over months of shared challenges and triumphs. What had begun as an accidental connection had become a chosen path, not just for themselves, but for the future of both their species. As they stood together at the threshold of that future, their minds touched in the space between thoughts, sharing without words the simple truth that had changed everything. Sometimes the greatest journeys begin with the smallest steps, or in their case, with a single compliment that crossed the stars.